The meaning of the word paranormal, as you can probably guess, relates to anything that is above or beyond normal. Things we can't explain or that defy scientific explanation. When you see a movie that depicts household objects whirling about seemingly of their own accord after 4 drunk teens got hold of an Ouija board, that's paranormal. As is when some once pretty girl in a white dressing gown with long black hair does a painful-looking inverted crab on the kitchen floor. But so are aliens, for that matter, or those psychic mediums that tell you your long-dead Uncle Fred has it easy on the other side, and he forgives you for stealing his collection of rare marbles. Today, we'll look at some cases that still defy explanation in this episode of the Infographics Show. 10 most horrifying unsolved paranormal cases. 10. The exorcism of... If you are possessed by a demon, who do you call? The Catholic Church, of course, not Ghostbusters. The Church wrote the first guidelines on exorcism in 1614, and while these days it condones looking for signs of mental illness in patients before strapping the victim to a bed and showering them with holy water, exorcisms do still happen. One of the most shocking cases was that of a young German girl called Anneliese Michel, the inspiration behind the film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. From 1975 to 1976, she underwent 67 exorcism sessions after revealing she heard voices. Well, it's worse than that. She crawled around eating bugs and once bit the head off a bird. On some occasions, she drank her own urine from the floor. She said she saw the devil and screamed most of the day, and she genuflected so much she ruptured her knee ligaments. She died from ill health after undergoing all those horrific exorcism sessions. This is at number 10, as it's almost certain she was mentally ill and not possessed, but that's not really for us to say. 9. The Toxic Lady. This is the story of a woman called Gloria Ramirez. In 1994, she was wheeled into a California hospital as she had been suffering from cervical cancer. Only shortly after her arrival, when staff were attending to her, they noticed her body looked very oily. They then noticed her mouth smelled like garlic or fruit, a weird smell, they said. On drawing blood, they saw little particles in it, and there was a smell of ammonia. That's the moment one nurse passed out. Others said they couldn't breathe. Some had muscle spasms, and all 5 were hospitalized, 1 in intensive care. To this day, no one knows what happened. Was it mass hysteria, or was it that the woman was emitting some kind of poison? 8. The Black Mausoleum. This is the story of a mausoleum in Scotland, situated in a place called Greyfriars Kirkyard. It's said to be one of the most haunted places in the world, mainly because buried in the mausoleum is a guy called Sir George Mackenzie, aka Bloody Mackenzie, a lord who was responsible for the deaths of many persecuted Presbyterians. Next to his mausoleum is the prison where many of the victims died. Scores of people visiting the sites have come out of the other end, sometimes bruised, sometimes burned, sometimes scratched. Others fainted in there, and some have been known to have broken bones on the tour. In 2006, the Scotsman reported that there had been 450 documented attacks, as well as 140 people who had collapsed. Mass hysteria has been blamed again, but who knows? 7. Mass dog suicide. Staying with Scotland, there's a place in the country just outside of Glasgow called the Overton Bridge. It's been nicknamed the Bridge of Death because, for some unknown reason, dogs jump off the thing. At least 50 dogs have died on record after making the jump, and another 600 survived the fall. They all jumped from the same spot, too, and always on a sunny day. No one knows why the dogs would do this, but 2 theories have been put forward. 1, it's a ghost, or 2, some strange smell makes the dogs do it. 6. Missing girl found both alive and dead. This is the story of little Pauline Picard, a girl of 2 who went missing from her family farm in Brittany in France in 1922. Her family searched frantically, but she was nowhere to be seen. 2 months later, she was discovered wandering alone about 200 miles away. The overjoyed parents did say the girl looked a little on the thin side and didn't seem to speak Breton, but they took her home and life went on as normal. Only a few weeks later, a cyclist found a mutilated body near the farm, and next to it were the clothes Pauline had been wearing when she went missing. The hands, feet, and head were missing from the body, and just close to it a man's severed head was found. Baffled police and locals had no idea what had happened, and the question everyone wanted to know was, who was the girl living with the family? It didn't sit easy with the parents, who gave the girl to the Franciscan Sisters of Notre Dame de Vaux. 5. The Ouija Board. You may have seen the recent Netflix Spanish horror movie called Veronica, but you may not have known it was partly based on a true story. The police report said the case was a situation of mystery and rarity, and that report was indeed real. Known as the Vallecas case, it's a well-known story in Spain. The story goes that an 18-year-old girl in Madrid called Estefania Gutierrez Lazaro had had a seance at school using an Ouija board. The seance was broken up, but soon after, the girl started to experience hallucinations and seizures. She said she was surrounded by tall shadows that followed her. She later died in hospital, but it wasn't until a year later that police visited the family home after the parents of the girl said strange things were going on down there. Indeed, 3 officers all said in their reports that they heard strange noises coming out of nowhere, that a drawer opened by itself, and that a crucified Jesus came separated from its cross and began to drool. It's one of the few cases where police have confirmed what the victims said. 4. The Enfield Poltergeist. A similar case was the Enfield Poltergeist in the UK, when, between 1977 and 1979, 2 sisters said something was haunting the house. Many experts visited the house and said it was real, while others said the sisters had quite cleverly made the whole thing up. In fact, scores of people who visited the house, some official, said they saw objects moving by themselves, and they heard the children speaking in different voices. Countless movies and documentaries have been made about this case. One thing is for sure, if the girls did trick people, they must have been exceptionally smart. 3. Amityville. Amityville horror movies are not just a bunch of movies based on nothing. It's one of the best-known investigations led by Ed and Lorraine Warren, and a film franchise that just keeps on giving. The story is of the Lutz family, who moved into a large Dutch colonial house in the area of Amityville in Long Island in 1975. What they found out, just prior to them moving in, was that a man called Ronald DeFeo Jr. had killed 6 of his family members in that very same house. Apparently, they got a discount for that. The new occupants soon began to see swarms of flies. Welts appeared on some of the family's bodies. They heard banging noises, and members of the family would levitate. Speaking of the time she was called in to cleanse the house, Lorraine Warren said some years later, "It was absolutely horrible. It followed us right straight across the country. I will never go in the Amityville house ever again." The family didn't stay anyway. They moved out of the ostensibly haunted house after 28 days. They let it be known about some of the things that they experienced in the house that was similar to the movies, but said some details were too frightening to speak about. 2. The Mothman. We apologize if you have heard many of these stories, but the fact that they have been made into movies is only testament to how interesting they are. The Mothman was a creature of unknown origin that was seen by over 100 people in a town called Point Pleasant in West Virginia in the mid-1960s. The thing, described as a large bird or moth with wings, with some man in there too, was seen a lot just before Point Pleasant's Silver Bridge over the Ohio River collapsed in 1967 and killed 46 people. It's also been seen in Chicago, with 21 sightings in 2017 alone. Maybe it got bored of the South. One woman was walking her dog and said she saw a large man, probably 7 feet or taller, standing on the ground. It was solid black, but what really stood out were the large, and I do mean large, pair of wings that were folded behind him. A man working at Chicago International Produce Market described the thing with bright red eyes that he and his friends saw. "I looked up," he said, "and saw the biggest freaking owl I have ever seen. I'm 6 foot 2 inches, and I'm guessing this thing was at least a foot taller than me," he said, adding, "It stood there for a minute or two, staring at everyone before shooting up into the sky and disappearing." Multiple witnesses saw the same thing, which certainly is strange. 1. The twins. We'll finish with a very different tale. The stories of two girls, Jacqueline, 11, and Joanna Pollock, 6, who both died in 1957 in Hexham, England, when they were hit by a car while they were walking to church. The driver of the car was a woman who had decided to kill herself after being separated from her own children. She took a large quantity of aspirin and phenobarbital and went for a drive, hoping to crash or overdose. The sad irony is that she took 2 young lives. The devastated parents prayed for more kids, and 2 years later, they were given 2 twin girls that they named Jillian and Jennifer. Hallelujah, a miracle it seemed. One of the twins shared the same birthmark, and the other had a birthmark where one of the deceased sisters had a scar. Apparently, the parents said both these girls liked the same things the other girls had liked, and knew exactly which toy was theirs. The parents kept some of the dead girls' toys. When they were taken back to their old house in Hexham, they had since moved to another part of England, the girls recognized the village and certain landmarks and even knew their way around. Some stories say the girls even had the same nightmare about being run down by a car. They were, it seemed, one and the same as the daughters that had died. Then, these memories just faded as the girls got older. Nonetheless, many have said that this could be proof of reincarnation. A Dr. Ian Stevenson wrote about the case in detail after spending a lot of time with the family. You can see what he said in his book, Reincarnation and Biology, a contribution to the etiology of birthmarks and birth defects. Tell us what you think about all these cases in the comments. Thanks for watching, and as always, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.